Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today I want to talk about some new information regarding the Dragon's Teeth DLC. That's the next DLC coming out after Naval Strike, and I know Naval Strike isn't even out yet, but we do have some interesting information regarding a Riot shield that could be coming in this new content. Now, what we do know about the Dragon's Teeth DLC is that it's going to revolve mostly around close quarter urban combat. Now, this reminds me of a few different expansions from Battlefield 3, Close Quarters and Aftermath. I'm hoping it fares closer to the Aftermath setting rather than Close Quarters. I think the Aftermath maps were actually really brilliantly designed in Battlefield 3, and I would love to see more of that style of map design coming in Battlefield 4. Now, that being said, the real information that we have so far is the Riot Shield, and that is a two-handed piece of gear. What that means is you cannot wield a weapon and have a Riot Shield at the same time. There's a lot of video games out there that let you carry a Riot Shield and then a lightweight secondary weapon like a pistol or a smaller SMG. Counter-Strike and Call of Duty both allow you to equip some form of Riot Shields. In Battlefield, there's going to be no weapon counterpart to it, and they said it's going to be a movable piece of cover. I don't know if this means that you're going to be able to set it down and it's going to act as like a barrier or a shield wherever you set it down, or if rather you just have to hold it the whole time and you can be the front lines for an assault or something like that, or perhaps be a distraction while your teammates take out the real threat. Now, I've seen some negative initial reactions to this concept, and I believe most of that is because of the association of Riot Shield with Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, and people associate Battlefield trying to mimic other games. However, I would say that Battlefield might just be re-employing a piece of cover that they used in Battlefield 2142 called the IPS. IPS stands for Infantry Protection Shield. The support class got to carry this as a piece of gear you could deploy on the ground, pretty much any flat surface in the game, and it would create a piece of cover that was several feet tall. You could duck behind it and you could pop up and shoot over it, or you could inch out to the side of it and shoot around it. Essentially, it was a very useful piece of cover if you ever got caught out in the open, but it was also very useful inside of, say, Titans and corridor areas where you might have a long hallway with no cover in it. You could place one of these shields down in the middle of the hallway, and all of a sudden you've created an obstacle and a barrier that changed up the gameplay dramatically. Now, if the Riot Shield functions in a similar manner in Battlefield 4, that could actually be a very cool addition to the game, as opposed to carrying it around and sort of shooting a pistol out from around it. We most commonly see Riot Shields in real life in actual riot situations, and the SWAT team uses them for breaching buildings and stuff like that, but I don't remember seeing too many tactical riot shields being used in the military or in any sort of military fashion. Now, I could be wrong on this. I'm sure it has been used in some situations, but generally speaking, when you think of a big army or a big battle going on, you don't think of soldiers running around with riot shields. Something that I would absolutely like to know the answer to is if this is actually movable cover, is it something that we're just going to pick up on the battlefield, much like some of the super weapons or the sniper rifles that you find around Battlefield 4, or is this going to be a permanent addition to your kit, say for the support class or something like that? Also, if you place it down in a really useful area of the map, say a high traffic area, and you're blocking off an area, will your teammates be able to move this out of the way, or will it essentially be used in a trolling fashion? I could see really negative side effects of this shield if somebody blocks off a highly used corridor and all of a sudden your entire team can't get through or make a flank. Now, one of the trickier things with Battlefield is that any new piece of gear or weaponry or vehicle that you bring into the game, you have to take into account that if this piece of gear can be exploited or used in a way that it wasn't necessarily intended to, it certainly will be. On the other hand, maybe it has the potential to fix some areas of the game that are already being exploited. Coming up an elevator into, say, a claymore or somebody that has C4 set up. What if you place down your Riot Shield in the elevator, somebody detonates the C4, and you've just saved not only your own life, but maybe one or two guys that are also hiding behind the Riot Shields. Now you can actually storm out of the elevator with some mobile cover. How about some of the more explosive, saturated maps like Operation Metro? I mean, the grenade spam going off in there, the grenade launchers, even RPGs and people chucking C4. You throw a few guys with Riot riot shields into the front lines there, all of a sudden they can take or absorb a lot of that grenade splash damage. Maybe they can actually make some cover where other players could not. Now, I mentioned blocking off key doorways or paths through the map in sort of a way to troll or exploit the game, but what if you did it in a way also that really benefited your team? Oftentimes there's certain parts of the map where the enemy just can get a much better control over it than you can. Rather than trying to fight it head on and just keep working at taking it out, you put 1 or 2 guys there with riot shields to sort of distract them and absorb the fire while you go for the flanking route. You don't necessarily have to worry about enemies rushing you, because now you have some decent cover, some decent way to prevent fire or even grenades and explosives from coming through a certain avenue. Now, what if the riot shield functions in a way that it does in other games, where when you're not using it, it is on your back? Perhaps it slows down your movement and your travel speed, but it can also deflect bullets from hitting you in the back. This could be incredibly useful in Battlefield. What if it deflected explosive damage on your back? So somebody throws a grenade at you, you're stuck in a corner, all you do is turn your back to it and deflect some of that explosive damage. That could create a very interesting class, and I would be very interested to see or try out some tactics like that, just turning your back on somebody to try and avoid some of the incoming fire. Retreating in Battlefield is a tactic I use all the time. Often you get overwhelmed, you take out 1 or 2 guys, and then you realize that there's 3 more behind them and you just got to make a run for it. Well, if you got some cover on your back, making a run for it all of a sudden becomes a much more viable tactic. Now, obviously, Dragon's Teeth is a ways off. We haven't even gotten Naval Strike yet, and we're already talking about balance issues with Dragon's Teeth. And there's certainly going to be a lot of interesting balance tweaks in Naval Strike, like the lack of a lot of the mobile AA tanks and stuff like that. How is that going to affect helicopter and jet gameplay? It could change up the gameplay quite drastically. In fact, it could also be looked at as sort of an experiment. How big of an effect does the mobile AA have on the success of helicopter piloting? All in all, I'm happy that DICE is continuing to innovate and try and think of new things to bring into Battlefield 4. Certainly, it's a game that already has so much in it that it's very hard to think of new concepts and new things to add to the game that won't essentially take away from some of the enjoyment or some of the good gameplay it already has. Let me know what you guys think about having a riot shield in Battlefield 4, and how would you want it to function? Would you want it to be something that you find around the map? Would you want it to be something that anybody can move once it's set up? Or would you want it to function much like the Call of Duty and or Counter-Strike riot shields, or perhaps the IPS from 2142? As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.